Holy City Center Radio. It's episode 200, and I am your host, Christian Sanger. Today is Friday, December 8th, 2023. Yes, 200 episodes about to be officially in the book at the conclusion of this one. Wow, 200 of these. I can't believe it. You know, obviously, when you're doing three shorter episodes a week versus just one a month, you're going to hit these milestones a lot quicker. But it still is like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I've sat down at, the microphone this many times to talk about Charleston, and it's just wild to think how many episodes that truly is. Maybe like 3 of them are good episodes. I don't know. I hope so. I appreciate you all tuning in for however many episodes you've listened to. It's so cool to do this. I've always loved radio. I know this isn't radio, but before podcasting was really a thing, not I shouldn't say really a thing. It was not a thing for many, many years of my life, of course. But it reminds me of the whole radio thing, of course. And so I've always really loved it. And it's a lot of fun to be able to do this podcast and talk about what's going on in town. Of course, fun to, be someone that people rely on to hear the latest news for whatever reason. They don't have time. We're all busy. It's hard to know what's going on. And so I appreciate that people look to me to do that. Maybe some are here to hear my opinion on things, which is also really cool if people actually agree with it or respect it, regardless of where they stand. And for whatever reason you're listening, maybe you're hate listening. I don't know. Whatever the reason is, I appreciate it. And it means a lot to me. And yeah, so thanks a lot. And why deviate from what we've been doing? We're going to get into the news here real quick. But before that, we have the weekend upon us. As always, you can go to holycitycenter.com to find out what is going on in town, all sorts of events, no matter the time of year, no matter the weather. There's always things happening. And I'm glad to bring it to you on my website. So be sure to check that out. Regardless of what you do, have fun out there, be safe, and just do whatever you can to enjoy what are hopefully your days off. If you're working, well, hopefully it's not too bad. And whenever you do have your days off, you'll have some fun and stay safe, just like, everybody I wished would do it this weekend. For episode 200, I've been so busy lately with all this new website stuff. So I apologize if there's nothing like fun or exciting or different really about this episode. Now, I will say there's a story I've shared on Facebook and Twitter about a report relating to MUSC and how they handled, backlash. Backlash isn't even really the right word, because usually backlash is, you did something wrong and you're seeing consequences for that. It's not really the right word, but I don't really know what else to call it. But it's about when keyboard warriors and misinformed people, including Elon Musk, tweeted, at them. This was during the time when Representative Nancy Mace was running for re-election. She was going head-to-head with Dr. Annie Andrews. And this whole trans narrative was really spiking online. The narrative of, hospitals are mutilating children and chemically castrating children and forcing them into the trans agenda and all that nonsense. And it led to, people like Musk doing the whole, I'm just asking questions thing, but the questions are asked in a way to rile up anyone who sees the question. It's like that old, maybe you all are not familiar with this, but in journalism classes and things, there would always be this like, hey, the way you phrase questions can certainly be leading. And you can also ask people things in a way that, gets folks riled up because they might not respond right. The classic one they always say is, oh, and when did you stop beating your wife? And like, I didn't stop. I mean, because I never started. That's like the thing. Like, you have to, don't put someone in that kind of position. When you word things in that way or make it a heavy loaded question, it can lead to things like that. So, you see that a lot, and we'll dive into it. But he asked a question of MUSC, piggybacking on some nonsense that wasn't even true, and then was quickly picked up by anyone who, was wanting to push the, any, whether it's straight up bigotry or misinformation or anything else. And it caused some pushback, and MUSC was getting threats. They were getting people like calling, pretending to be parents of kids that were, expressing interest in the topic of really anything regarding LGBTQ people, but we're maybe expressing like I might be trans or I have questions about my gender, and they were trying to trap them, in lies, by saying, oh, well, you said publicly you didn't do this, but on the phone call you said you did, and of course they didn't trap them in anything because MUSC did tell the truth about what services they had, and yada yada yada. So in any event, this article kind of delves into that and some of the things that people tried to do, the misinformation that was out there. And they also, through the Freedom of Information Act, were able to find some communications internally at MUSC, which ultimately led to them backing off of the trans services that they offered, or I should say the services they offered to trans people, whether they were, teenagers or younger, and have left some kids essentially in the lurch, like that were getting treatments. And when I say kids, I mean it could be any range of age, but the things that people really get worked up about, which generally are not happening in this country, people that were old enough now are not sure where they can get treatment. It's a whole thing that I have so many opinions on from multiple angles. And I just really wanted to dive into it because it's our first real comprehensive look at that entire situation and how it's been mishandled by so many people, a lot of bad faith actors too. And I certainly want to dive into that, but I wasn't quite ready to do that for this episode. Just been so busy with other things. So I'm hoping over the weekend, I'll be able to get that together for Monday's episode. But I will be talking about that piece because there is a lot to look at and a lot of angles to it. There's the MUSC side. There's the, people spreading misinformation, people that glommed onto it to try to use it for political gain. And then there was the people who were trying to tell the truth from the beginning, and just this dumb cycle that we're going through, in this country with many issues. And this is not to say that there's not some left leaning, culture war that's been blown out of proportion by the left. It just so happens that this one was one that was blown out of proportion by the right. I'm certainly aware that there are situations, especially when it comes to social media, that just completely get blown out of proportion. Misinformation spreads so easily. People don't check sources. People just blindly believe things. So there's a lot to talk about, and we'll certainly get into that. But just didn't have the time today. Not just because being busy, but also I've got two stories that are pretty important, and we're going to dive into those right now. The Walt Disney Company was recently removed from South Carolina's investment portfolio. This, according to State Treasurer Curtis Loftus. He announced this on Tuesday. So for those who didn't know, and this was not something I was keenly aware of, I'll be honest, states can invest in things. And one of the investments that the state had was with the Walt Disney Company, and they decided to cut ties with that. The state treasurer's office portfolio currently contains $105 million of Disney debt instruments, and this is according to ABC News 4, that will mature and then will not be replaced, according to the office. So they'll take the money that comes from this investment, and then they're no longer investing in Disney. The reason for it? Oh, boy, you won't be surprised. Here's what Loftus said of the move in a statement that he posted to his office's official website. Quote, Disney has abandoned its fiduciary responsibility to its investors and customers by joining far-left activists in boycotting legal, tax-paying, employment-creating corporations to further Disney's political agenda, end quote. So what is he talking about? In recent weeks, Disney, along with 200 other companies, including businesses like Airbnb, Amazon, Coca-Cola, and Microsoft, have either paused or completely stopped advertising on Twitter, now known as X, due to Elon Musk's controversial comments he's made on this social media platform. He makes a lot of dumb comments, but he's had a few that have been viewed as either anti-Semitic or anti-Semitic adjacent, I guess. How people, well, he didn't really mean it that way. Well, it came off that way, and he's been promoting, during the conflict between Israel and Palestine. He was promoting what he said were good sources of information, because he's got this war against traditional media. And some of those sources were like notoriously anti Semitic, racist, bigoted people. Even if the information they were presenting was accurate in this one instance, these were people who had a history, a well known one, of these problematic behaviors. And so a lot of companies started to back away because of that. Makes sense. Apparently, state of South Carolina, that's a bridge too far. Due to that advertising boycott, by the way, it's reported that Twitter could lose over $75 million in revenue. So, number one, this is silly. Businesses can stop advertising with whomever they want to for any reason. That's within their right. Obviously, it's within the state's right to decide if they don't want to invest with them anymore for whatever reason. So the same holds true. So don't get me wrong. Everybody can do whatever they want in this situation. But it just is so dumb to me, the screw your feelings side to switch their normal way of saying that phrase. Screw your feelings. First Amendment forever. I'm a First Amendment absolutist. Well, Disney company used their First Amendment right to decide they didn't want to advertise on Twitter anymore. Their reasons shouldn't matter to anybody. Now it can. There's all sorts of things people do that are not illegal, that are not nefarious, or not shady. Just stuff you disagree with, and then you choose not to support those, whether it's candidates or companies or whatever else. I mean, this happens all the time. So trust me, I get that. Like, the state can do whatever it wants, but it seems like it's a dumb decision anyway. It's a company that makes lots of money and is behind some pretty big projects. Like, and I know they're not the heyday that it was, but the Marvel franchise is behind it. Star Wars, Disney has their hands in all this stuff. If Disney is down a little bit, they're not down for long. So to remove this investment doesn't seem to make financial sense. I'm by far not an expert, but just on the face value, it's clear that this is just we got them, They're far left. Now, they don't. Disney's political agenda is to make as much money as possible. That is Disney's agenda. Do they I mean, that's every business, right? And of course, there are some that wade more into politics and things. But Disney having a problem with a company's, whatever his official role is, CEO, owner, whatever, having a problem with them vocally saying anti-Semitic things, promoting anti-Semitic, racist, bigoted accounts, that's a political agenda that you disagree with. I could understand Loftus having a problem if Disney was like, oh, Elon Musk said he is going to vote for Donald Trump in the election, so we're not advertising with him. That's like sending a political message. I don't like a candidate. We're not going to support Twitter through advertising anymore. They're doing it because they don't want their brand to be associated with someone who's promoting anti-Semitic, bigoted, racist, add your ist and isms, because there's so many when it comes to Elon Musk. Who opposes that political agenda? Like, you don't want to support this because he said something anti-Semitic. Oh, I can't believe you're bringing politics into this. Like, give me a break. It's it's so ridiculous. The whole thing is so dumb. And also the name X is dumb as well, and I refuse to call it that. When Elon took over, he decided that dead naming people, and for those who don't know, when a trans person decides to change their name, if you continue to use their old name, that's considered dead naming. And obviously that happens by mistake. Well-meaning people who have known someone for years or their entire life might have a hard time switching. Like, I've known this person as this name forever, and then trying to switch to the other name, it's certainly difficult. So that there was a policy in place. So if it was being done in a harassing way, it was being intentional, you could, have your account suspended for a little bit or whatever. When Elon came in, he did away with that completely. Dead naming is allowed because he doesn't believe, even though he has a child that is trans, he doesn't believe that this is a real thing. So he said, nope, dead naming is allowed. So if we're allowed to dead name human beings, I'm certainly going to continue to dead name your dumb company and continue to call it Twitter. That's besides the point, but just wanted to put that out there. The main point was this. The crowd who always talks about free speech and screw your feelings and everything's too political. When a bunch of companies decide they don't want to associate with someone, even if it's just temporarily, just to see if things settle down, if he kind of learns his lesson because he said something anti-Semitic and agreed with something that was an anti-Semitic trope. That's not political. That's just protecting your brand. Let's not pretend brands are like these great things. I'm not saying that either. They all have their faults, but that's them saying, I don't want my brand associated with that. This isn't, oh, I don't want my brand associated with a political party. It's, I don't want them associated with anti-Semitism. And so for our treasurer to come out and be like, we are not having Disney investments anymore over that is so ridiculous. It's laughable if it wasn't also very sad. Somewhat related, some Berkeley County parents say they feel that the book review committee process has been a waste of time and money after the board voted to suspend the ongoing book review committees. This is all part of another culture war, Moms for Liberty, blah, blah, blah. We've talked about this a bunch, this war on books, book banning. And anytime you say, I'm not for book banning, people start screaming out, oh, so you want porn in schools then? No, I don't. No one does. No one wants porn in schools. You don't have to jump to the most extreme thing you can think of. There are lots of books being banned or removed from schools that definitely have nothing to do with porn. And certainly, maybe there's some sexual content that's being removed, but it's not just that. It's a lot of different topics, including health and well-being that's unrelated to gender or sexuality or any of the other triggering things for some people. That's what's actually going on. Things are getting swept up that shouldn't be in this whole thing. So Berkeley County had a single parent, you may remember, challenge. It was something ridiculous, like 90 books. And because of the process they had in place, they had to go and look at all of these books. An incredible waste of time and money. Now, records obtained through the Freedom of Information Act that were then shared by Live 5 News show that Berkeley County School District spent more than $6,000 to purchase about half of the 93 challenge titles for parents and staff to use for their reviews. Some books that have already been purchased have not been reviewed yet, as they were scheduled to be by the committee next year. So they basically just abandoned it. They started this process, realized it was costing them a ton of money, especially when one bad faith actor decided they wanted to challenge 93 freaking books. And of course, as you can imagine, most of those had none of the things that people are complaining about the most. And it's just a complete waste of time. So much so that they're not even finishing it. They just decided to abandon this whole thing. Now, a school district parent by the name of Jonathan Harmon told Live 5 News that he thinks that the cost is just the tip of the iceberg. It's been a lot worse than that. He said, quote, it's really just a shame and it's very disrespectful to people to have put their time and effort into this and take away from their families, end quote. And he is right. This was a committee that was involving parents. They were trying to make it seem like it was this collaborative effort. And now these people who put in this work have nothing to show for it. He also said he doesn't think the committee review process should have taken place at all based on just one parent's complaint, which is exactly what happened. And then he went on to say, and this is really, I think, the important part here, he called out the Moms for Liberty types. I don't know if they were officially backed by them, but the folks who were like, yeah, book bans and teachers are indoctrinating and grooming our children, all that kind of nonsense. This parent called it out saying, quote, I think that this entire ordeal has been a waste of money. And I think that when it didn't go the way that a group of board members didn't want, or a special interest group, they just moved the goal line, end quote. Basically saying, hey, when you thought this book ban was going to be this winning thing for you, and then you realize it wasn't going the way you thought it was going to go, and it was a lot, the community at large, just like here in Charleston County, is against it and thinks it's being overused and used incorrectly. They decided, well, we'll just do away with this. Yeah. Imagine that. People who had no political background, who are running on one issue were not serious about legislating or helping children, just like here in Charleston County, this is the kind of crap that you expect to happen. Things are started, abruptly ended when it doesn't go the way that they wanted it to go. Money is wasted, time is wasted, and all that they did was further this dumb culture war that we've got going on. So no surprise. Glad Live 5 News was able to get some information to put an actual price on it. Grand scheme of things, $6,000 isn't a lot in a school budget, but the fact that it was only a short amount of time as school began, in August, and we're now in December. This isn't even the full school year. It would have cost so much more to continue that project. It just once again showing how all this nonsense isn't just frustrating and annoying for some of us, but it's actually costing money. It's wasting time, and it's not helping the children in any way, shape, or form, and is also preventing other things from getting accomplished because we're busy doing this crap. That'll do it for this edition of Holy City Center Radio. It's 200 episodes. I still can't, get through a whole episode without stumbling or anything. But, we're leaving it in because it is what it is. That was a ranty episode, as many of them tend to be. And yes, when I talk about this MUSC thing, it's going to be pretty ranty. So if you are not a rant person, and I get it, I don't mind you skipping when I do cover that topic. But I think some of you agree with my rant, or at least some of the points in the rants, and that's why they keep on coming. But I hope, as always, to have balance and not every episode be ranty. It's nice to sometimes just have something fun to talk about. We'll see what episode 201 brings on Monday. Thank you to Lindsay Marie Collins, who produces this and every episode with the LMC sound system. And a thank you to Tyler Boone as well, whose music you hear in each and every show. And of course, thank you to all of you for listening. I appreciate it so much. If you haven't already, please subscribe, rate, review. You know the shtick. If you can do any of that stuff, I appreciate it. You can also go to patreon.com/holycitycenter, and you can sign up for one of those tiers. I really appreciate it. It helps offset some costs associated with the podcast and the website, and just makes things a little easier. So I greatly appreciate that. Enjoy your weekend. Stay safe and have fun out there. I'll talk to you on Monday. Until then, good night and good luck.